The black men who outsmarted the Klan. One with music, one with a badge. Picture this. It's the early 1980s in America. The Civil Rights Act had been passed nearly 2 decades earlier, but racism was still alive and thriving. Across the United States, especially in the South, black Americans continued to face racial hatred in the form of job discrimination, police harassment, housing segregation, and violence. For decades, the Ku Klux Klan operated as the face of white supremacist terror, burning crosses, bombing churches, and lynching black men, women, and children without consequence. The Klan had been founded in 1865 by former Confederate soldiers after the end of the Civil War. Originally posing as a social club, the Klan quickly grew into a national terrorist organization dedicated to keeping black Americans in a permanent state of fear and second-class citizenship. From the Reconstruction era to the violent days of Jim Crow, the Klan used their white hoods and robes not just to scare, but to kill. Lynchings became public spectacles. Black businesses were burned. Families were terrorized in their own homes. By the 1970s and 80s, the Klan was still holding rallies, burning crosses, and recruiting members. But 2 black men, one a musician and one a detective, would take them on in ways that no one saw coming. Daryl Davis, the musician who talked the Klan out of their robes. Born in 1958, Daryl Davis grew up overseas as the child of a U.S. Foreign Service officer. Unlike most black children raised in America, Daryl spent his early years in countries where he was not treated as less than because of his skin color. But when he returned to the United States, the racism he experienced was impossible to ignore. Daryl would later say that the hatred he encountered as a child planted the seeds for the mission that would define his life. Daryl became a professional blues and rock and roll musician, performing with legends like Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis. But it wasn't music alone that put him in the national spotlight. It was what happened after a show in 1983. While performing at a bar in Maryland, Daryl was approached by a white man who told him it was the first time he had heard a black man play like Jerry Lee Lewis. When Daryl explained that Lewis had learned from black musicians, the man was stunned, and then admitted he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Instead of walking away, Daryl leaned in. He asked the man how he could hate someone he didn't even know. That conversation led to others, and soon Daryl was meeting with more Klansmen, some who were high-ranking members. Through patient dialogue and personal relationships, Daryl convinced dozens of Klansmen to leave the organization. Many of them gave him their robes and hoods as a sign that they had turned their backs on hate. To this day, Daryl Davis has collected over 20 Klan robes, symbols of lives changed not through violence or protest, but through conversation and music. His work was later featured in the documentary Accidental Courtesy. Ron Stallworth, the black cop who infiltrated the Klan. A few years earlier, in 1978, Ron Stallworth had made history as the first black detective in the Colorado Springs Police Department. Born in 1953 in Chicago and raised in El Paso, Texas, Ron had experienced racism throughout his life, including being called racial slurs by fellow officers. But that didn't stop him from rising through the ranks to become an undercover investigator. One day, Ron noticed a newspaper ad recruiting members for the Ku Klux Klan. Seizing the opportunity, he responded, using his real name. When a Klan organizer called him back, Ron used his best white voice to gain their trust. Over the phone, he posed as a white man who hated black people, Jews, and other minorities. He was so convincing that he was invited to meet with local Klan members in person. Since Ron obviously couldn't attend those meetings himself, he recruited a white officer, Chuck, to pose as him. Together, they successfully infiltrated the Colorado Springs chapter of the Klan. Ron personally spoke on the phone with none other than David Duke, the Klan's Grand Wizard. He even convinced Duke to send him a membership card and certificate. Thanks to their undercover operation, Ron and his team prevented multiple cross-burnings, monitored Klan meetings, and kept tabs on members who worked in sensitive military positions. His work exposed the Klan's ongoing efforts to infiltrate law enforcement and the military. Decades later, Ron published a book about his experience. His story inspired the 2018 Spike Lee film Black Klansman, which won an Academy Award and brought his incredible story to millions of viewers worldwide. Two men, two different strategies. One common enemy. Daryl Davis and Ron Stallworth used very different tactics, but their goal was the same: to expose and dismantle white supremacy. Daryl did it face to face, sitting down with men who hated him because of the color of his skin. Through patience, humanity, and fearless conversation, he pulled back the mask of hatred and helped dozens of Klansmen walk away from a life of racism. Ron did it through deception and law enforcement, using his position as a detective to gather intelligence, prevent violence, and bring the Klan's operations into the light. Both men took extreme risks. Either one of them could have been targeted, exposed, or killed. But their work proved that dismantling white supremacy doesn't always look like protest marches or courtroom battles. Sometimes it happens quietly, through unlikely conversations, or through a phone call to a grand wizard who has no idea he's speaking to a black man. Their legacies remind us that racism didn't end with the civil rights movement, and the work of confronting hate is far from over. Sources. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the facts. Special thanks to NPR, The Guardian, The Washington Post, and interviews with Daryl Davis and Ron Stallworth. Spike Lee's Black Klansman and the documentary Accidental Courtesy offer even more insight into these incredible men who took on the Klan in ways no one expected. Legal disclaimer. This content is published for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to glorify, encourage, or promote direct engagement with hate groups, extremist organizations, or any form of vigilantism. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Scope News provides commentary and analysis based on publicly available information, historical records, and media reporting as of the date of publication. While every effort has been made to ensure accuracy, readers and viewers are encouraged to conduct their own research and consult official sources for verification. Scope News does not assume responsibility for actions taken based on the content presented. Viewer discretion is strongly advised.